So, no creative or silly intro to this video. No. We're keeping things nice and simple because we're going to be talking about the Quiet on Set Nickelodeon documentary today. And I have many thoughts. So, this might be a little bit of a longer one. So, grab yourself a drink. I have one of my faves. And grab yourself a snack. Get comfortable. Because we have some unpacking to do. Okay. I want to start off with a little bit of backstory. So, I am not someone that was involved in the Nickelodeon stuff at all. I'm not famous. I'm not an actor. I was not involved in any of the Nickelodeon stuff. However, I have my own unfortunate experience with grooming, which I already made a video going into all of that. So if you want to see that, if you haven't seen it yet, I will leave it in the card, and I will also leave it in the description box below if you would like to hear that video and hear more about the details of what happened with that. I'm not going to get too much into that today because I've already talked about it. But I really wanted to touch on the 4 episodes that we saw on Max. So if you have not seen the Quiet on Set documentary, first of all, I recommend that if you're able to sit through it, if you're able to watch it, I recommend anyone who's able to watch it to watch it. Because in my opinion, it is the most important documentary that we might ever see on this whole topic. And like the things that these survivors shared in this documentary are beyond what I could ever imagine sharing, and I respect them so much for what they've shared and what they talked about, and taking the time out of their day and their lives to do this was incredible, and I support all of them. Power to survivors, because we need to stick together. It's been a time. So this was a very last minute decision to film this video. If you can't tell, I did not do anything exciting, because I just wanted to keep this simple and to get to the point of the documentary. So, if you haven't seen the episodes, there's not like, this isn't like a spoiler type video that you can do. So, if you haven't seen them, go watch them if you can. They're streaming on Max. If you don't want to see them, here's some snippets that I wanted to talk about in this video that I feel like I need to touch on. So, we're dealing with Dan Schneider. If you don't know, he's the creator of iCarly, Drake and Josh, Amanda Show, Victorious, like Sam and Cat, so many more that I can't think of off the top of my head, but he's in charge of a lot of those. He was in charge of a lot of those shows. And they called him repeatedly in the documentary, which really irritates me. But I get why they say it. They call him, he was Nickelodeon's golden boy for a long time. He was. He shouldn't have been, but he was. So, in the first episode, they talk a lot about Dan Schneider's history with creating these shows and kind of working his way up in the Nickelodeon company and in the studio. And one of the things that really stuck out to me in this documentary, in the first episode, is them talking about the writers. They hired 2 female writers. And this is probably like early, when was this? Maybe like late 90s, early 2000s, if I remember correctly. It's like around that time. What's insane is they had these 2 female writers sharing a salary, like splitting a salary to write these episodes. That makes no sense, and it's infuriating because, I mean, that's not even the worst of it, but that in itself is irritating. That shouldn't have happened. But, however, as bad as Dan Schneider is and was, he is nothing compared to Brian Peck. What do you even say about Brian Peck? He was a, what do they call him, an acting coach or a dialect coach, something like that. And he would work with a lot of the actors for these shows. And he was the one that, if you haven't seen these, that abused and R-word, R-A-P-E-D, Drake Bell. Multiple times, from what we learned in the documentary, which I had no idea about. Of course, none of us knew. But that alone is shocking and disturbing, and how he didn't end up in jail longer than 16 months is beyond me. And it's absolutely infuriating that it was only 16 months and then he was released. And not only was he released, but Disney Channel then hired him after he had been in jail for what he did to Drake Bell. He had already been convicted and found guilty, and Disney Channel brought him to their network. And I have no words for what these children endured during their time on Nickelodeon, and I can only imagine some for Disney Channel as well. But we don't know a lot of stories on that. I'm hoping someday people will come forward about Disney, and about what happened to them and speak out and be heard, because power to survivors. We all need to be heard. And I can say confidently that with this documentary and with everything coming out, I have never felt more heard and seen with my own experiences, and it's a very healing feeling. And watching these episodes, I definitely had some emotions, and I definitely cried quite a few times watching this. It's very hard to listen to. I wouldn't recommend this to everybody. I don't think it's something that everybody needs to watch, but if you can handle it, I think you should. Like, I don't even know where to begin with some of these episodes. Some of the stuff on Amanda Bynes I never even knew, which is insane. But looking back on these clips, because they do show clips of some of the episodes in the documentary, and some of those scenes I don't even remember seeing, but obviously as a kid they're going to go right over my head. Like the jacuzzi scene with Amanda and Dan, I had no idea. I don't remember that happening ever. But it also doesn't surprise me looking back on how much we know about Dan now and what he was able to get away with. So what I want for this video is for people to take away: survivors more than ever need our help. We need more allies for survivors. Period. There's just not enough. There just isn't. So I'm also going to leave Eat Predators in the description below. That's Alexa Nicholas's YouTube channel, where she talks about all of these experiences. I highly, highly, highly recommend subscribing to her channel and watching her videos, because she goes a lot more in detail about stuff like this, and it's so helpful and so important to watch. And it's just so healing. It's so healing for me to be seeing all of these survivors come forward and finally being seen and heard and feeling that I don't know what word to call it, but it's so important right now. It's so important, and I just feel like we need to be doing more for survivors. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not involved in Hollywood, thank goodness. So I don't know really what I can do, but I'm going to keep speaking out. I'm going to keep sharing things. I'm going to keep talking about it because we need to talk about it. I know that this is mainly a booktube channel and it's still going to stay that way, but I am going to be talking about stuff like this. Stuff like this is important. It's too important to not talk about. So I'm definitely going to be talking about it. But to get back on track with the episodes, episode 3 and 4 is when we hear about Drake Bell's experience and when we hear more from Alexa Nikolas herself. And something else that I found very disgusting and disturbing. Since this documentary has come out, if any of you have ever seen the Ned's Declassified podcast, then you know that they have been nothing but disgusting with all of this stuff coming out and all the victims and the survivors coming forward. They have been nothing but disgusting about it, and they haven't changed. Somebody saw a live stream and was able to record it. I'm sure they took it down by now, the original video. But they were mocking the survivors from the documentary. And I'm just sitting here watching this, just wondering what in the world is going on. Where have we gotten to in this world where we think that mocking survivors of SA and grooming just anything, survivors in general, is okay? Where have we come to where we think that laughing about a documentary of survivors sharing their experiences and sharing their stories is okay? And I understand a lot of people will say, oh, humor is my defense mechanism. There's a difference between humor being your defense mechanism and laughing at survivors of grooming and SA and all of this stuff that happened with Nickelodeon. And just survivors in general. There's a difference. There is a fundamental difference. And I'm speechless. I don't know what they thought was going to come from that. I don't know what they thought was going to happen. I don't know if they thought that people would actually find it funny. Because the comments that I saw were nothing but, this is disgusting. Thankfully, I didn't see any comments supporting it. But I'm just speechless. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing that we think this is okay? I'm at a loss. And I really don't know what else to say on that. It's disgusting. And I can't help but notice that someone behind that podcast, just like the other ones at Podco, is none other than Christy Carlson Romano, who has also blocked me on Instagram. A long time ago, she blocked me. And I wonder, there's so many people that haven't spoken out because they signed NDAs. And we all know that Jennette McCurdy was offered hush money at one point for not release her book and her experience, and she turned them down. So it makes me wonder that if a lot of these other people took the hush money, so now they can't come forward and they can't say anything, or they just don't care. Flat out, they just don't care because their experience on set and on those production companies, with those production companies, weren't the same. So they don't care, and they want to keep their jobs. And if that's the case, that's very, very sad. And gross. And those are not people that we should be supporting. Oh, I just have so many thoughts. I have so many questions for the people that are not speaking out. And another thing I wanted to touch on was Josh Peck. Now, I know Drake has come out and said that Josh reached out to him and they are talking about things. and things were on, I guess, civil or decent terms with them. So he said just to go easy on Josh, which I haven't been commenting a lot of stuff. I did comment on TikTok, just saying that he blocked me, because he blocked me on Instagram. I asked him the other day about his thoughts on Quiet on Set, just a simple, what are your thoughts on it? And he blocked me, which I think is very interesting. It's very suspicious. Like, did you take hush money? I don't know. I'm not going to assume anything, because I don't know him. But when you block someone for just asking a simple question, it raises concerns. So, he is not someone that I'm supporting at this current time, which is a real shame, because I loved Drake and Josh as a kid. Like, I'm sure a lot of you guys did too. I loved that show. I thought it was hilarious. And their, like, dynamic as brothers in the show was so good. But unfortunately, at this current time, I don't see myself supporting Josh in the future. Which, I mean, to him, I'm sure he doesn't care. He has plenty of supporters still. But it's just something I don't see myself doing. And this also comes down to my surprising feeling of somewhat support to Drake Bell as well. We all know he's done some things in the past. He has allegations that he has come forward and testified that he did. Which makes it really hard to take anything he says seriously. Unfortunately, people like that do have abusive things that they've done in grooming often know the right things to say. So it's hard to know if they're telling the truth, but at this current point in time, I am supporting with caution. I think is the best way I can describe it. Until something else comes out that leads me to believe he's not being honest, then I'm going to believe that he truly was harmed and raped by Brian Peck. I don't know why he would lie unless it's just to get people on his side, but he talked about his own allegations in the documentary as well. So if he hadn't touched on that, then I probably would be more inclined to not believe him. But because he also talked about that and he has apologized and confessed and everything, then I have more reason to believe him as of right now. If that changes, that's something I'll come to in the future. But as of right now, I believe him, but I still feel awful for his victims that we know of. I guess with all of this being said, I just wanted to put my own thoughts out there, and I needed to talk about the documentary for my own sake and my own well-being and my own healing, and I just needed to get these things off my chest. I'm not really sure what else I can say, but yeah, those are just my thoughts, my initial really thoughts on the documentary. I thought it was very well done. I mean, to the point where some of the people that worked on these sets didn't even show their faces because they're so scared still of getting in trouble. And it's so sad. But I'm very thankful that the amount of survivors came forward that did, because it's so important to hear their stories and to know what happened on those sets and to know how best we can help them and move forward. And I'm not even going to talk about Dan Schneider's quote-unquote apology tour that he went on, because I haven't fully watched it yet, and I just have like no more thoughts on him. He's gone. In my mind, he's not. I'm done talking about him, unless something bigger comes out. But as of right now, I'm done talking about him. I just don't see him needing any more, I don't know what the word is. He doesn't need more people talking about him than already are. So, yeah, um, I don't know. I don't know what else to say at this point. I really just want people to watch this if you can. If you feel like you can watch this documentary, then please watch it, because I think it's so important. And it's such a time when all of this stuff is coming out that we need to be backing survivors and being allies and being there for them and hearing their stories and just supporting them, because this is a really hard thing to come forward with. My grooming happened when I was 16. I'm 28. I'll be 29 in June. And I'm just now, this year, talking about my story and my experience. It's hard to do. It's one of the hardest things to come forward about stuff like this. It's one of the hardest things to talk about ever. And the respect that I have for these survivors that came forward and did this documentary is astounding. And I just hope that they know that we are going to support them and that we're here for them, because they need it. And yeah, I guess that's really it. I wanted to get my thoughts out there and share my opinions on these episodes. They're so hard to watch. I cried many times watching them. They were so hard to watch, but they're still important to watch. And we need more stories coming out like this so that we can better help these survivors, and we can help any survivors out there that need allies, that need support. So I think that's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Thank you for watching. If you were able to watch this entire video, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts or anything on the documentary, please feel free to leave those in the comments. If you are a survivor yourself and you need someone to talk to, I am absolutely here for that. Yeah, I just hope we can show our support, and yeah, I guess that's about it. So thank you so much for watching, and I promise the next video will be more lighthearted. I'm sure my next video will probably be another reading vlog, so look forward to that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you so much. Power to survivors.